You ever have those days where you just feel completely overloaded by the noise of the world? I mean, from the second your alarm goes off to the last thing you hear at night, it feels like a constant assault on your senses. Well, today, we're going to get into why that is. We're exploring a really profound article from us here at the Spiritual Seek, all about why our world is just so loud, what that constant noise is actually costing us, and, most importantly, how reclaiming a little bit of silence can be, believe it or not, a truly revolutionary act.
So let's just jump right in with the big question, one that I think we all feel deep down, almost physically, every single day. We are absolutely surrounded by sound. But when was the last time you actually stopped to think about where it's all coming from and what the sheer scale of it really is?
You know, this line from our article really hits hard because it confirms that, no, you're not imagining things. The world we live in, the acoustic environment that shapes our thoughts and our days, is unlike anything humanity has ever experienced before. For thousands and thousands of years, our ancestors lived in a totally different soundscape, and that shaped them in a very different way.
Okay, so let's try and break this down. What exactly makes up this modern auditory storm, as we call it? Because as you're about to see, it is so much more than just the obvious stuff like traffic jams and construction sites.
It's not just the big booming sounds that contribute to the storm, right? Our article points out that it's also the stuff we barely notice, that persistent, low-level hum from all our electronics, the endless pings and notifications from our phones, even the clatter of our own keyboards as we work. It all weaves together to create this non-stop tapestry of sound that, honestly, almost never gives us a moment of real rest.
So, why do certain noises make us jump out of our skin while others just fade into the background? Well, it actually comes down to our deep, ancient biology. Our brains are hardwired with something called the orienting response. Think about it. A sudden, unpredictable sound, like a car horn or a dog barking out of nowhere, that instantly triggers our caveman alert system. It completely hijacks our attention, puts us in this constant, low-grade state of fight or flight, and it just shatters our ability to focus on anything else. And this brings us to a really crucial point we explore in the piece. It's not just about the volume. It is all about the quality of the noise that messes with us. Natural sounds, like falling rain or wind in the trees, they're often predictable, they have a rhythm, and they can actually feel restorative. But the harsh, meaningless, totally artificial noises of our world, they are completely alien to our nervous systems, and they literally drain our mental batteries.
So this constant bombardment of depleting noise, it has consequences that go way beyond just being a little annoyed. Let's dig into what our article calls the spiritual cost of this never-ending state of distraction.
Here's the thing. The noise on the outside creates a perfect mirror image on the inside. All that external stimulation generates this non-stop internal chatter. You know the feeling. That stream of half-formed thoughts, worries, and reactions that just makes deep, quiet thinking feel almost impossible. Our minds simply never get the chance to settle down. And this has real specific costs. Our awareness becomes shallow. We're just reacting to the next ping, the next email, the next headline. Our ability to really sustain our attention on one thing just withers away. And that still small voice inside, that gut feeling, that intuition that so many spiritual traditions talk about, it gets completely drowned out. But maybe the most insidious part is that noise becomes this convenient shield, right? It's an escape from having to sit with life's biggest, scariest questions about who we are and why we're here.
All right, now this is where it gets really interesting and maybe a little counterintuitive. We argue in the article that we aren't just passive victims of all this noise. In a lot of ways, we actively seek it out because deep down, many of us have an unconscious fear of what silence might actually force us to confront.
Just think about your daily life. Music is blasting in almost every single restaurant and store. TVs are always on in waiting rooms and airports. The second we step outside, what do? We put in our headphones. Our culture sends this really clear message. Silence is awkward. It's empty. It's unproductive. It must be filled with something, anything, immediately.
And this fear, it's not simple. It operates on a few different levels. First, there's the psychological fear. What if all those emotions I've been pushing down finally come to the surface? Then there's the existential fear of having to face those big questions about life and death. There's also an identity fear. Who am I, really, without all the distractions and roles I play? And finally, a spiritual fear. The fear that silence might just open us up to realities that shatter our comfortable, neat and tidy view of the world.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, and it's a big one. But what's the solution? Well, the good news is that deliberately cultivating silence is a skill, and it's one any of us can learn. So let's get into the practical guide we offer for reclaiming that precious stillness in your life.
So, the journey has to start with the world around us. The very first step is to be intentional about engineering your physical environment. We have to actively build our own little sacred spaces, our own acoustic refuges from the storm.
And we offer some really tangible things you can do. Simple stuff like getting heavier curtains can make a huge difference. You can start identifying quiet public spaces in your town, a library, a park, a museum. Make it a point to get out into nature. But honestly, maybe the most powerful tip for our modern age is creating technological boundaries, carving out specific times and places where all notifications are just off, giving your brain a real break from the digital noise.
Now, creating that external quiet is absolutely crucial, but it's only half the battle. The second, and maybe the more challenging part, is cultivating a quiet mind. This is about learning how to find that center of stillness even when the world around you is completely chaotic.
Think of this like fitness training, but for your attention. You can start super small, just a few minutes of intentional silence a day. Use your own breath as an anchor that you can always come back to when your mind starts racing. You can even practice reframing your relationship to noise. Instead of getting angry at the sound of a siren, just notice it as a pure sensation without judgment. The real key here is consistency. A little bit every single day is so much more powerful than one long retreat once a year. All right, as we move into our final section, we start to see how this very personal practice of finding silence becomes something bigger. It's more than just a self-help trick. In the world we live in today, choosing to cultivate silence is actually a powerful act of personal and cultural resistance. And here's why this matters on a much larger scale. Access to quiet spaces is rapidly becoming a luxury good. Wealthier people can afford to live in quiet neighborhoods or to soundproof their homes, while many others are forced to live with constant noise pollution from highways or industry. We argue that we should start thinking of silence as a commons, like clean air or clean water. It's a shared public resource that is absolutely essential for everyone's well-being, and it's a seriously overlooked issue of social and environmental justice.
And this brings us to this beautiful, powerful reframing of the whole concept. Our culture tends to see silence as a lack of something, an emptiness to be filled. But the great contemplative traditions have always understood the truth in this quote. Silence isn't an absence, it's a different kind of presence. It's not empty, it's actually full of potential. It isn't deprivation, it is deep, deep nourishment for the soul.
So, we want to leave you with this final question from our article to just sit with. By intentionally reclaiming our attention, by stepping out of that constant river of stimulation, we create space. A quiet space between the sounds, a pause between the thoughts. The real question is, if you dare to enter that space, what will you find waiting there for you?